Hi everyone, my name is Emiliano Camera, and I'm the grandson of Franco Grignani. In this video, I'd like to talk briefly about the techniques behind a series of paintings my grandfather began creating in the 1980s and continued working on throughout the entire decade into the 1990s. The painting you see on my left, in fact, is dated 1990. These works are known as hyperbolics. A hyperbola is a geometric figure we all encountered in high school. A form that is certainly fascinating but not especially complex. And yet Grignani managed to transform it into something three-dimensional, something that still recalls the hyperbolic curve, but in a far richer and more intricate way, producing an effect he himself described as almost vertiginous. At the time, I was just finishing elementary school and about to start middle school. Still, I had the chance to spend many hours with him, especially on Sundays. I would watch him work, and he never held back when it came to explanations. So the technique I'm presenting here is exactly the one he taught me, and although he was very protective of his methods, the idea behind these paintings is actually quite simple. In fact, that very simplicity may be what has disoriented viewers for so many years. These works were always admired, yet almost no one, really no one, ever tried to understand how these geometries were actually constructed. And yet even someone completely new to Grignani's work could begin to grasp it simply by looking closely at the geometry, at the points, at the structure of the figures beside me. Many people fall into the same trap. They assume these images are based on curved lines. This is a very common mistake, and you'll soon see that this is absolutely not the case. And as with a magic trick, once it is explained, what seemed mysterious can suddenly feel obvious, almost banal. I've described the technical details more thoroughly in a post on the blog I created in my grandfather's memory, titled The Hyperbolics Revealed. You'll find the link in the video description. Now, let's focus more closely on this particular painting. Its title alone is already quite revealing. Shaded Scaling Neckbreaker. The word scaling refers to variability, to deformation within hyperbolic geometry. As for neckbreaker, there are different interpretations within the family, but most likely, my grandfather simply meant that when viewers truly immerse themselves in the work, when they mentally enter its geometry, they inevitably find themselves twisting their necks, almost as if they were on a roller coaster. Each painting in this series begins with a basic module, that is, the simplest geometric element in the work, which is repeated throughout a more complex structure. Here you can see that module enlarged and shown without distortion. You'll notice that it is based on a square grid, very much like the graph paper of an ordinary notebook. This same module appears again and again within the painting, but always in a transformed way. Its shape constantly changes, and yet, if you look carefully, it is always the same element. My grandfather's notebooks were filled with sketches and experiments like these. Many of them have unfortunately been lost, but there were thousands, tens of thousands. He always had the final image, extremely clear in his mind. The entire process was already there, and yet he continued to draw, to test, to experiment. Only a very small number of those sketches ever became finished paintings. Identifying and choosing the basic module was essential, but it was not the only crucial decision. The second fundamental choice concerned how that module would move across the painting, along which paths. And as I mentioned earlier, these paths are not curved at all. This phase is what my grandfather called the choice of the grid. For him, the grid was a network of straight lines, not curved lines, intersecting in such a way that once the module was placed on this distorted lattice, it generated the three-dimensional optical effects that have fascinated so many viewers. It wasn't only art critics who commented on these works. In 1981, Cesare Musatti, a psychoanalyst and a passionate scholar of Gestalt psychology, wrote about them for a major exhibition at Lorenzelli Arte. Later on, also Giuseppe Cagliotti, a nuclear physicist, also became deeply fascinated by Grignani's work. He even found parallels with his own field of study, quantum physics. Now let's move on to the construction of the grid itself. From this point on, I'll try to speak as little as possible. This construction, this animation, really benefits from being watched with full attention. We begin by creating the grid, a structure made of roughly horizontal and vertical lines. Once the grid is complete, we start constructing the basic module you saw earlier. First, the black area, and only at the very end, the colored part. Then we remove the grid. And here you see the finished painting. These grids, or reticoli, as my grandfather called them, were often named after cities. Sometimes Italian cities, with different variants. Rome A, Rome B, Milan A, Milan B, Milan C, and sometimes international cities like Los Angeles, or even Melitopol, named after the birthplace of his wife, my grandmother Jeanne, who was born in what is now Ukraine. These paintings were made in tempera on cardboard, so even the smallest mistake in the construction of the geometry could lead to disastrous chain reactions. That is why, if you were allowed to be near him while he worked, you had to be absolutely calm and completely silent. Once the painting was finished and framed, my grandfather often placed it against the bookcase in the living room. There is a photograph from 1981 when he was 73 years old, and on the lower right, you can see one of the hyperbolics leaning against the shelves, ready to be shown to family members and to visitors. He always used to tell us, "Never stand still in front of one of my paintings. Move from right to left, and from left to right. Try to look at it from the corner of your eye. You'll see that it keeps changing shape. A painting is always in motion." So even though this video necessarily presents the painting frontally, if you ever have the chance to see one in real life, I encourage you to follow his advice. Thank you.